I'd lived in this house for 10 years. 10 solid years of paying every fee on time, mowing my lawn by the schedule, repainting my mailbox when they asked, and showing up to every HOA meeting, even the boring ones about community flower beds. I wasn't just a good neighbor. I was the guy they counted on, the one who quietly did his part without complaining, never caused trouble, never missed a single HOA payment, not once. So when I got a notice taped to my door that said, "Final warning, eviction proceedings initiated due to delinquent dues," I thought it was a joke. I actually laughed out loud, but the letter was real. It had the HOA seal, their letterhead, the name of the current board president, and a breakdown of outstanding fees totaling over $4,200. That's when I stopped laughing. I called the HOA office right away. No answer. I emailed. No reply. I drove down there thinking I'd straighten it out in person, but the office was closed for renovations. The only thing taped to the door was a flyer about the upcoming spring sidewalk chalk contest. I should have known then something was off, but back then, I still believed in playing fair. So I pulled every record I had, bank statements, HOA receipts, everything going back 10 years. I stacked them on my kitchen table, labeled each one, and even highlighted the payment dates. I wasn't just up to date. I had overpaid on a few occasions when late fees were applied by mistake, and I never fought them. I dropped off a full copy packet into the HOA drop box with a sticky note. See attached proof of 10 years of payment. Please confirm and correct this error immediately. I figured that'd be the end of it, but it wasn't. 3 days later, I came home from work to find a bright orange paper taped to my garage door. Notice of HOA lien pending. Failure to pay will result in foreclosure. And just like that, it stopped being a clerical error and became a threat. I knew exactly who was behind it. Her name was Cheryl, board president, HOA queen, retired real estate agent turned full-time power trip. She took over the HOA 6 months earlier when the previous president stepped down. The guy before her, reasonable, kept things running smooth, but Cheryl, she walked in like she owned the whole neighborhood. First thing she did was audit everyone's property. Hired an inspection crew that walked around with clipboards and laser measures, writing up infractions like patio furniture visible from sidewalk and non-regulation flag size. Then came the fines, $25 here, $100 there. One guy got fined for planting a tree 2 feet too close to his driveway. Another lady got hit for hanging laundry on a Sunday. It wasn't about community standards anymore. It was about control, and Cheryl loved control. The problem was, she couldn't control me. I didn't break rules. I didn't fight her. I just stayed quiet, paid my dues, and minded my own business. But people like Cheryl, they hate quiet resistance. They hate when they can't pin you for anything. And apparently, Cheryl decided the best way to deal with me was to manufacture a reason to kick me out. After that lien notice, I went straight to the county clerk's office to pull property records. That's when I saw it. Cheryl had already filed paperwork to place a lien on my house, based on the unpaid fees she claimed I owed. I asked to see who signed off on it. Her name was right there, bold and smug, Cheryl Godfrey, HOA president. She didn't even bother trying to hide it. She wanted my house, and suddenly it all made sense. My property sat on a corner lot, big yard, recently renovated kitchen. I'd seen Cheryl walking past it more than once, staring a little too long. She wasn't just trying to enforce dues, she was trying to force me out. I called an emergency HOA meeting. It wasn't easy. The board made it nearly impossible. They rescheduled twice, then changed the meeting location last minute. When I finally showed up to the right place at the right time, it was me, Cheryl, and 3 board members who looked like they were just there for the free cookies. I brought the receipts, laid them on the table, clearly showed every payment I'd made year by year. Showed how the totals didn't match their delinquent balance by a long shot. Cheryl didn't even glance at them. She just smiled and said, "Unfortunately, Mr. Avery, the board already voted. Your non-compliance has been documented. We're proceeding." I turned to the other board members. "Did you even see this?" I asked, holding up the documents. One of them shrugged. "We just go by what Cheryl tells us." That's when it hit me. This wasn't an error. It was a setup. I left the meeting with one thing in mind: fight back. But Cheryl wasn't done. The next day, she had the HOA security. Yes, they had security now, come to my house and take pictures of my yard. They stood there on the sidewalk like they were casing the place for a break-in. One of them even flashed a fake badge with compliance officer on it. 2 days after that, I got another letter. This one said, eviction proceedings to begin within 15 business days. Now they weren't just threatening foreclosure. They were claiming I no longer had the right to live in my own home. 10 years. 10 years of paying dues, following rules, and playing it straight. And now the HOA was trying to erase all of that like it never mattered. But they messed up, because they assumed I was just some quiet homeowner who wouldn't push back. What Cheryl didn't know. I had more than records and receipts. I had time, I had fight, and I was just getting started. After that last notice, I knew Cheryl wasn't bluffing anymore. She was pushing full speed toward eviction. And she wasn't doing it legally. She was doing it her way, the HOA way. Quiet, underhanded, and through paperwork most people don't know how to fight. But I wasn't most people. The first thing I did was file a formal dispute with the county. I attached every payment record, proof of overpayment, and even photos of the drop box where I'd submitted the correction packet they ignored. That at least bought me time. It froze the lien for 30 days pending review. Cheryl didn't like that. The same week I filed the dispute, I came home to a violation notice duct taped to my front door. This time, failure to maintain landscaping emergency assessment. $600 for a single patch of dry grass near the fence during a drought. And just 2 days later, another one came in. Unapproved exterior paint touch-ups, $350 fine. I hadn't painted anything at all. I even walked around the house twice to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. It was clear now, this wasn't about fees anymore. It was harassment, retaliation. But Cheryl didn't stop there. That Friday, I caught 2 HOA board members standing just beyond my driveway, talking in hushed tones and pointing at my house. When I stepped outside, they scattered like kids caught trespassing. One of them dropped a folder. They didn't even come back for it. Inside were photos of my backyard, zoomed in, detailed. Some were from behind the fence, which meant someone had either climbed it or stuck a camera through a gap. That crossed a line. I called the local police department, filed a harassment and trespassing report. Gave them copies of the folder, the notices, and the photos. The officer at the desk nodded like this wasn't the first time he'd seen HOA nonsense cross the line. "Karen type?" he asked casually. I cracked a smile. "Her name's Cheryl, but yeah, close enough." He made copies of everything and said they'd follow up. In the meantime, he advised me to install cameras and document everything. I was already ahead of him on that one. But Cheryl wasn't just playing dirty on the ground. She was playing dirty on paper too. I pulled my credit report and found something shocking. A pending collections flag had been filed against my name by the HOA. That meant she'd reported my so-called unpaid fees to a third-party collections agency. My perfect credit score already dropped 46 points in a week. And if the eviction process went through, it could tank even more. I immediately disputed the claim. But this was bigger than a credit hit. Cheryl was laying the groundwork to legally evict me, and I finally realized why. I started digging deeper into Cheryl's background. I found out she used to be a real estate agent, but not just any agent. She specialized in distressed properties. Her whole business was flipping homes that were foreclosed or forced into sale. She didn't just want to enforce HOA rules. She wanted people to default. She wanted their homes on the market, homes she could recommend to buyers she already had lined up, or maybe even scoop up herself with a shell LLC. That's when it clicked. This wasn't personal, it was business, and I was just another house she thought she could flip on paper. I wasn't about to let that happen, so I hit back. First, I hired a property attorney, one who specialized in HOA abuse cases. The moment I showed him the paperwork and harassment trail, he said, "They don't have a leg to stand on, but they're counting on you not knowing that." I did. And now I had someone who did too. We drafted a cease and desist letter the same day. We sent it to Cheryl, the entire board, and the HOA's legal representation, if you could even call it that. The letter laid everything out. Documented proof of full payment history, retaliatory fines and violation. Notices illegal entry onto private property, defamation through credit, flagging abuse of HOA powers for personal gain, and we ended it with a clear line. Any further action to pursue lien or eviction will result in a civil suit and a criminal referral for fraud and harassment. Still, I didn't expect Cheryl to fold that easily, and she didn't. She hit back harder. The following Monday, she called for a special closed-door board session. It wasn't public, it wasn't on the community bulletin, and it sure as hell wasn't in the bylaws, but someone tipped me off. One of the board members, quiet guy, rarely spoke up, always voted along with the group. He reached out, sent me an email with a subject line that just said, "You need to see this." Attached was the agenda, item #1, authorization of accelerated lien enforcement on Lot 27 Avery residence. Item #2, board authority to assume possession pending resolution. In plain English, they were trying to fast-track taking my house. No due process, no vote, no homeowner notice, just a backroom vote to take it from me under the cover of policy. I forwarded the agenda to my attorney. "Tell me this is illegal," I said. He didn't even hesitate. "It's not just illegal, it's actionable." We filed a motion in county court the next day to halt any HOA action pending investigation. And we served Cheryl with an official demand for all board meeting minutes, financial disclosures, and records of homeowner communications over the last 12 months. But it didn't stop her. 2 days later, I got a certified letter. Notice of termination of residency. You must vacate the property within 14 calendar days to avoid forced removal. That was it. No hearing, no appeal. Just a cold-blooded letter trying to erase my name off the house I had paid for, lived in, and maintained for a decade. I looked out my window at that house, my house, and I made a decision. This wasn't going to be a legal battle anymore. It was going to be a war. The minute I got that certified letter, the one saying I had 14 days to vacate my own home, I walked straight into my lawyer's office and dropped it on his desk. He scanned the letter, looked up at me, and said exactly what I was thinking. They've completely lost it. See, Cheryl had just crossed a legal line. There's a massive difference between filing a lien and trying to enforce a residency termination without a court order. And that's exactly what she tried to do, which meant now I had something bigger than just harassment. I had grounds for a lawsuit. A real one. We didn't waste time. My attorney filed an emergency injunction in county court to freeze all HOA action against me. Not just the lien, not just the fake fines, everything. But I wanted more than a pause. I wanted Cheryl exposed. So while my lawyer worked the court angle, I started working the neighborhood. I wasn't the only one she'd gone after. I was just the one she was trying to erase. But I knew there were others. People who got mystery fines, notices, warnings that didn't match anything in the rules. So I started knocking on doors. At first, people were hesitant. They didn't want trouble. Cheryl had built a reputation for retaliation. You speak up, she sends letters. You complain, you get fined. But when I told them what she tried to do to me, people started talking. One guy showed me a $900 bill for extended driveway width. He hadn't touched his driveway in 5 years. An older woman pulled out photos, proof she had been fined for a non-compliant mailbox after replacing it with the exact model Cheryl recommended. Another neighbor had his backyard flagged as a hazard zone because his shed roof didn't reflect HOA aesthetics. All fake, all vague, all Cheryl, so I compiled it all: names, letters, fines, photos, a full binder of HOA abuse, and then I called the local news. I didn't go straight to the big networks. I started local. Channel 7 investigates. They cover stuff like bad zoning laws and corrupt city board members. This was right up their alley. When I met the reporter, I handed her the binder and said, "The HOA here is weaponizing policy to push people out of their homes. Start with me, then follow the trail." She opened the folder, flipped through the pages, and her expression changed from polite curiosity to full-on interest. "This Cheryl woman," she asked, "does she know you're building this case?" "Oh, she'll know soon enough." 2 days later, a news van pulled into the neighborhood. That's when everything shifted. The HOA panic switch got flipped. The board sent out an emergency community newsletter. Do not speak to media, claiming the news crew was spreading misinformation. Cheryl sent an email blast to every homeowner with a subject line that read, "HOA under attack, we must stand together." She made it sound like I was the threat. But people weren't buying it anymore, because now everything was public. The news report dropped on a Wednesday night. Lead story: homeowner faces eviction after 10 years of payments. Is this HOA out of control? My face wasn't shown, but my voice was. They aired parts of Cheryl's fake notices, played a clip of my cease and desist letter, and even included interviews with 3 neighbors who had nothing to lose anymore. And just like that, the phone started ringing. The county board called my lawyer for a meeting. They had received multiple complaints about Oak Ridge HOA in the last 2 months, but none with the documentation we'd brought. Now they had proof. And they weren't happy. Turns out, Cheryl had bypassed 2 separate regulations in the process of filing that lien. She didn't hold a board vote, didn't notify residents within the required window, and she absolutely didn't have legal grounds to threaten eviction. She was cooked. But that's not all, because the real bombshell dropped a few days later. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more wild, real-life HOA drama, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Every new subscriber keeps me motivated to dig deeper, write more, and bring you even crazier stories. Your support means the world. It's what keeps this channel going strong. So stick around, because we've got way more chaos coming your way. My attorney got a call from a contact inside the county legal records department. He told us to come down and see something. When we arrived, he laid out 2 documents side by side. One was the official lien Cheryl filed against me. The other was a copy of the HOA ledger showing I owed nothing. Here's the problem. The lien Cheryl submitted had forged data. She manually entered delinquent balances that didn't exist. Not a mistake, not a miscalculation. A straight-up fabrication. She altered records. That's fraud. That's criminal. At that point, the gloves came off. We filed a formal complaint with the State Attorney General's office for HOA misconduct and real estate fraud. We also submitted documentation to the State Licensing Board. Because remember, Cheryl was still operating under a real estate license. That license, gone within a week, revoked for ethical violations. That was just the start. I came home a few days later to find Cheryl's SUV parked in front of my house. She was standing on the sidewalk, arms crossed, waiting. I didn't say anything as I walked up my driveway, but she spoke first. "You think you're winning," she said. I stopped, turned, and looked her right in the eye. "I don't think I'm winning. I know you're losing." She tried to laugh, but it didn't stick. "I've served this community for years," she said. I stepped closer. "No, Cheryl, you've milked this community, threatened them, fined them. And now you're about to lose everything because you thought no one would fight back." She stared at me for a second, then got in her SUV and drove off. That was the last time I saw her on my street, but the damage was already done. The HOA board fractured. 2 members resigned. One gave a public statement admitting they'd been pressured by Cheryl to vote without seeing real documents. A third admitted she never actually read the eviction notices Cheryl sent, just signed what was put in front of her. And as for Cheryl, she had no idea what was still coming. Because we weren't done, not by a long shot. After Cheryl drove off that day, I stood there for a moment, watching her tail lights disappear. She didn't know it yet, but the house of cards she built was already collapsing. Because while she was playing HOA dictator, I had gone to war. And now the legal system was on my side. The week after the news report aired, everything accelerated. First, the county court granted our emergency injunction. That meant Cheryl and the HOA could no longer take any action against me, not a lien, not a fine, not even a warning letter. Violating it would be considered contempt of court. Then the State Attorney General's office contacted us. They had reviewed our complaint and decided to launch a formal investigation into Oak Ridge HOA. The words in their letter: "Evidence suggests a pattern of misconduct, falsified documents, and potential real estate fraud. Our office will begin formal inquiry proceedings immediately." That was it. That's when the real fear set in, for Cheryl and for every board member who signed anything under her leadership. I didn't stop there. Through my attorney, we filed a civil lawsuit against the HOA, and Cheryl individually. The claims were simple and solid. Fraud for forging records to file a lien, defamation for reporting false delinquency to credit bureau's harassment for repeated violations without merit. Violation of due process by attempting eviction without a legal order, trespassing and invasion of privacy for taking unauthorized photos of my backyard, and the amount we were seeking, $250,000 in damages. That number wasn't random. It was calculated. Emotional distress, legal costs, credit impact, property value interference. I wasn't just fighting back. I was going for the knockout. Meanwhile, Cheryl tried to spin it. She sent out a community-wide letter. Dear Oak Ridge residents, it's disappointing that one homeowner is attempting to tarnish our neighborhood with legal action. Please know the board has always acted in good faith. Good faith. She tried to steal my house. Within 24 hours, 4 homeowners posted scanned copies of her fines to the neighborhood Facebook group. Good faith went out the window fast. Then came the audit. See, part of our court filing included a motion for financial transparency. We wanted to know, where had all those HOA dues really been going? That's when the board, what was left of it, was forced to hand over 5 years of financial records. It didn't take long to find the dirt, over $60,000 in discretionary improvement expenses, except there were no improvements. No new landscaping, no new security system, not even a new trash bin, but the receipts, they told a different story. $2,400 for consulting services to a company tied to Cheryl's cousin, $1,700 at a luxury spa listed under board team retreat. Monthly community outreach stipends being paid to Cheryl that wasn't an HOA. That was a personal piggy bank. We turned all of it over to the Attorney General. And suddenly, Cheryl wasn't just facing a civil lawsuit. She was staring down criminal charges. The final straw came 2 weeks later. The state licensing board issued an official notice. Cheryl Godfrey's real estate license has been permanently revoked for gross misconduct, unethical behavior, and abusive position in a governing role. They didn't suspend her, they buried her. And the moment that went public, it was over. The HOA had an emergency vote called by the remaining board members and unanimously removed Cheryl as president. She didn't even show up, but I did. I walked into that meeting, documents in hand, and sat right in front. One board member, clearly shaken, stood up and said, "We recognize the mistakes that have been made. We're working to restore the HOA's integrity." I didn't speak. I just slid a copy of my lawsuit across the table. "You're going to do more than that," I said. "You're going to clean up the mess you allowed. And when this is over, I want my name cleared, my credit restored, and every homeowner you harassed refunded." No one said a word. They just nodded. The next day, Cheryl's house had a "for sale" sign out front. Rumor was she took a cash buyout and fled the state before indictments could land. Last I heard, she was living in Florida, trying to start a property management consulting business. But it didn't matter anymore, because I had won. The lien was removed, the credit flag erased. The harassment stopped, and the HOA, it got gutted. A month later, a new board was elected, made up of actual residents who wanted fairness, not control. They issued an apology letter to every homeowner. They revoked hundreds of fake violation notices. They dissolved Cheryl's security enforcement program, and they implemented strict transparency rules to prevent another power trip like hers from ever happening again. But the best part, every homeowner Cheryl fined got fully refunded. The new board even offered to cover part of the legal fees for anyone who had to fight her decisions in court. That's what real accountability looks like. As for my lawsuit, we settled out of court. The HOA didn't want it dragging into the media any further, and frankly, neither did I. They cut me a 6-figure check and agreed to issue a formal written apology. But I didn't want just money, I wanted it on record. So I requested, and received, a signed statement from the HOA admitting I had paid all dues on time, I had been wrongfully targeted by the board, the eviction attempt was baseless, and that all future enforcement actions must follow legal due process. That document, it's framed in my office. Because I didn't just win for me, I won for every homeowner who got stepped on and stayed silent. A few weeks after the dust settled, I sat on my porch for the first time in months. No violation notices in sight, no one circling the block taking pictures, no threats taped to my door, just quiet. The way it should have always been, but the truth is that quiet came at a cost. I fought harder than I ever imagined I'd have to, just to keep the home I already owned, the one I'd paid for and maintained without fail for 10 straight years. And for what? Because one power-hungry woman saw an opportunity to exploit the system. Because a handful of people on a volunteer board didn't ask questions. Because most people don't have the time or energy to fight. But I did, and that made all the difference. The new HOA board invited me to a community reconciliation meeting. It wasn't mandatory, but they wanted to show good faith, to bring the neighborhood back together and reestablish trust. I didn't want to go, but I did. Because I wanted to look those board members in the eye and remind them what happens when you sit back and let people like Cheryl take control. They apologized again, publicly this time, promised new oversight, better rules, clearer bylaws, and annual audits. They offered to erase every remaining violation from Cheryl's reign, no questions asked. And then one of them said something I didn't expect. "We'd like you to consider joining the board." I blinked. They were serious. I told them no, I didn't want a title. I didn't want power. I just wanted peace. But I did leave them with one final piece of advice. Run this place like a neighborhood, not a business, not a courtroom. People live here. They raise their kids here. They work long hours and come home just wanting to rest. Don't make their homes a battleground. They nodded, and that was the end of it. Karen, sorry Cheryl, never returned. The rumors about her were endless. Some said she was facing fraud charges in 2 states. Others said she changed her name and moved in with a relative to avoid the lawsuits. I didn't care. She was gone. Her damage reversed, her power stripped, and her little kingdom dismantled for good. But you know what surprised me the most? It wasn't the legal battle. It wasn't the lies or the fake documents or even the eviction attempt. It was how many people came forward after it all blew up. People who had lived in fear of their own HOA. A couple who got fined every spring for incorrectly pruned hedges. A single mom fined for her daughter's bicycle being left out overnight. A retired veteran harassed for having a flagpole that was too tall. Nobody had said anything, until now. Because now they knew someone had stood up, someone had fought and won, and they realized they could speak too. The neighborhood changed after that, not just the leadership, but the energy. People stopped whispering and started talking openly. HOA meetings started filling up, not with angry rants, but with residents who wanted to understand how their money was being spent. Fines dropped, rules got reviewed, power got shared. That never would have happened without what Cheryl pulled. She thought she could weaponize policy. She ended up uniting the community by being the example of everything wrong. Funny how that works. As for me, I'm still in the same house, same yard, same driveway, same flag flying off the porch. But I added one thing. Right next to my mailbox, on a small, clean sign, are 4 words printed in plain black letters. We know our rights. Not flashy, not loud, just a reminder that this isn't Cheryl's neighborhood anymore. It's ours. Looking back now, I realize Cheryl never actually wanted my house. Not really. She wanted the power of being able to take it. She wanted obedience. She wanted control. But people like her always underestimate the quiet ones. The ones who don't make a fuss until they have to. They expect compliance. They don't expect resistance. And they definitely don't expect to lose. But Cheryl, she lost everything. I share this story not just because it happened to me, but because it's happening in neighborhoods all across the country. Good people, rule followers, neighbors who pay their dues and mow their lawns, getting crushed by power-tripping HOA boards and Karen-type leadership with clipboards and egos. If that's you, start documenting. Get your records in order. Ask questions. Don't let them scare you into silence. Because trust me, once you push back, they fold fast. And if they don't, well, you might just be the one to take them down like I did.